Hey everybody, nice to meet you guys. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Akande Davis. I'm the VP of Operations at G&W Consulting, and something that's really kind of close and near to my heart is how do MOPs professionals earn a theoretical seat at the table? So today we're going to be going through exactly what that looks like, which is turning operational work into business wins. And I think this is kind of the struggle or the dynamic that's always going to exist with highly technical execution-focused teams and the strategic arm. So we're going to kind of dive into what that looks like, what that means, and hopefully there's not really going to be do this, do that, because every situation is unique and interesting. But hopefully you guys will feel encouraged, empowered, and ready to tackle your next week with some excitement. So the idea here is earning trust at the seat of the table. Now, the first thing that I used to hear all the time and would come up quite often is like, we need marketing, sales, and customer success to be aligned, right? That's kind of the ideal goal of RevOps. But of course, who cares about alignment when everything is on fire? If you're a MOPS person and you're putting out fires consistently and you're having to chase down different things and requirements that you have, or getting last minute requests, or the sync breaks, or an integration isn't working the way that it should be, you guys are kind of stuck, or we're kind of stuck in this place where everything is fine. When it's all on fire all the time, who's going to focus on alignment? Who's going to focus on sitting down at the table? And better yet, how do you get yourself into that room, into those conversations, so that before the integration breaks, so that before there's a last minute request, there's some kind of process in place, there's some kind of understanding in place, and there's trust that's built so that when recommendations are made, it goes well. To give you guys a little bit of background on myself, this is an amazing self-portrait that my daughter drew of me, and I just felt it was appropriate to include in here. As you can see, I have the G&W t-shirt, so you can know what I wear around the house. I do represent the company well, but I came from an in-house role. So just to zoom out, 50,000-foot view, in 2014, I first got introduced to marketing automation. The first ever platform that I worked with was ActiveCampaign. Anyone using ActiveCampaign at an enterprise level here? Anyone? No, not yet? Okay, that's fine. But ActiveCampaign was the first ever platform I got into, and that's when marketing automation, as I knew it, kind of blew my mind. Then I went into an in-house role with Pardot and eventually landed in Marketo Engage as an in-house resource. So during my time as an in-house resource, I was stuck in the execution trap and execution cycle, but I had this deep desire to help the company grow in a meaningful way. Sending an email is awesome, but what does that really do for the bottom line? Those were the kind of questions I wanted to ask. But I was typically involved with some of these bullet points, and if you guys want to raise a hand for how often, if it's more than once a week, how often are you troubleshooting sync issues with the CRM? Okay, that's about right. I'm making sure I hit it. How about approving, changing, reapproving, and changing, and then reapproving emails because someone had a thought about a different subject line? Or maybe an emoji, slightly different. How about chasing down unsubscribed people, getting emails who never actually unsubscribed? Maybe they just looked or thought about it and didn't actually happen, or sales was sending them emails the whole time. List imports and more list imports. So we got this list import from this event, and it needs to go to these people. Make sure that it goes to these people. I know you don't have visibility into CRM. Make it happen. Figuring out why Outlook hates me and how to get it to stop hating me. If anyone run into that? Is that just me? Okay, maybe it's just me. Or I saw one other hand over here. And then explaining why we can't send international emails to anyone because of GDPR. This was a big issue in our organization circa 2019, literally had to stop. And then of course, fighting for budget. So instead of doing the work that really felt meaningful or the strategy that I felt I could be bringing to the table, I was kind of bogged down in these things. And that was how I went from the in-house to the out-house. Let's go. While all these things are necessary and important, what I really had a passion for was designing a scalable campaign architecture instead of executing them manually. You know, instead of having to send out, and this is a simple example, but post-event trade show emails manually. Why are we doing it manually? Let's just send it out automatically. How do we test out new tools that are coming out? You know, and I'm really fortunate in my current role. I'm getting to encounter technology all the time, but you know, at the time it was like Marketo was the big deal. We had Sugar CRM, and that was kind of the extent of it. We weren't really experimenting with new technology. How do we develop these long-term frameworks for attribution and scoring and funnel visibility? It's hard to have those conversations when you're bogged down on the day-to-day. And then, of course, translating technical insights into meaningful reports for leadership and partnering with sales products and RevOps to align the process. So I genuinely thought every other operations professional was doing all of these cool things. I thought that I was the only one that was running into these issues all the time or being bogged down in things that I didn't really want to do. And that's when I found out I wasn't alone. And in fact, these were challenges that everyone was running into. So obviously moving from one org to the next org, not too much change from that standpoint, right? I was still running into the same things, still having to do the same things. And thankfully, I got really, really good at it. And I think as we kind of go through this presentation, I want to keep it open and dynamic. I want to keep you guys engaged. I think execution, and execution done well, is the foundation for all of this. So if you're already great at your job and doing some of those things, that's only going to build a solid foundation for you to move on to. But once I found out that these were challenges that everyone was running into, I was like Spider-Man looking at other Spider-Man like, wait, hold on, you're running into this as well? And that's when I kind of realized, okay, this is a common theme across organizations where marketing ops, sales ops, even dev ops kind of get locked into this bucket where they're doing things maybe that they're not passionate about, but have to get done. It's what pays the bills, it's what keeps them employed. How do we transition from these technical conversations, from these execution-heavy focused days, and start getting into a realm where we can apply, recommend, advise on strategy, and get a seat at the table? Now, guys, just to be fully transparent here, the chances of a marketing ops person getting a true seat at the table is going to be challenging. And I think that's okay. I think that's just how businesses operate. So when I'm talking about a seat at the table, I'm really thinking about how do we get leadership to give us visibility and a seat at the table? How do we get them to appreciate and understand what we're doing to unlock that strategy? So you might not necessarily be in the boardrooms, I think that's okay, but the people that are in the boardrooms representing marketing, whether that's your CMO, your VP of marketing operations, whatever it might be, how do we get that buy-in from them? So when I think about how to approach this, the first thing that comes to mind is translating ops into revenue. How do we take what we do and turn that into a meaningful solution for revenue? And that's essentially what I'm thinking about automation. Automation is really a way that marketing operations is impacting a business outcome. That's the first step. So when an email goes out, it goes out well, goes out consistently, goes out reliably. That impacts a business outcome, whatever that might be, whatever that email is intended for. If an SMS message, if a WhatsApp message, whatever it is that you're doing, if that goes out reliably, it's impacting a business income. An autoresponder and sales alert, for example, are driving speed to lead and improving sales velocity. So it's not just sending an alert or sending a notification. It's bubbling up the most important things and action items that a salesperson could be doing and taking action on and giving that visibility to the org, but also giving visibility to marketing as well to understand, well, how fast did it take for them to reach out? How fast did it take for them to have that first conversation? Are we having conversations? And data normalization, as another example, enables accurate and reliable porting across channels and teams. So these are ways that automation is actually unlocking true business outcomes. It's not really just, okay, well, we need data to be normalized because we want all the state fields to be the same. We want job titles to be consistent. That's an important thing. Well, why do we want it to be consistent? So that we can see our audience across reporting metrics in a reliable way. Let me get a little drink of water. When we also think about that same kind of concept, so we're going to talk about automation, operational levers, and execution. But then next, sorry. I was going to use an iPad so I could see my slide deck ahead of you guys. It's on this screen, but it's very small. So when automation conversation comes up with leadership, how do we kind of reframe the discussion point? How do we reframe the conversation? These are just some recommendations. You probably have heard these sometimes before, but instead of saying we built a new workflow or we built a smart campaign or a program, say we reduced lead response time by 30%, or whatever that number is, you plug in that number. But that's how you frame the automation and the work that you're doing, because you're not doing work, you're enabling a business outcome. Or we clean the database. We improve campaign deliverability and tracking. When we say something like, oh, we're using UTMs now. Okay, cool. What does UTM stand for? I think it stands for urgent tracking. I don't even know what that necessarily means, but I know that UTMs will enable reporting and let us see which channels are performing best at the very minimum. And that's how we want to communicate when automation conversations come up. When we think about operational levers, so things that we're doing operationally as an organization. Operational levers are really growth levers, right? That require technical resource to execute. And two more examples here. So this is a good example of an operational lever that I feel is applicable and very simple to reference. The time of day, content, and cadence of a nurture program, those are operational levers. The time, the cadence, and how often are directly going to impact lead qualifications and overall score. So if you have a more consistent nurture program at a certain time of day with certain types of content, that's gonna impact your audience in a different way. But operationally, you're building an email, you're setting a nurture cadence, whatever that might be. Another example of this is that lead qualification thresholds, which we often will set up. Those are operational levers. That's saying, okay, your MQL, if people are still using MQLs, your score for that is 50 points, whatever that's gonna be. That's an operational decision, but what does it do? It impacts a business outcome. It helps determine quality, quantity of prospective audiences. So again, this kind of thought process, well, how do we take an automation or operational lever and turn that into a business outcome? Just a couple of examples. So operational levers, like we're saying, can be growth levers. And again, just to kind of frame this up, while operational activities can be tied to growth, it's important to note not everything has to reflect ROI. Not everything has to immediately impact the bottom line. I decided to put on this shirt, these pants instead of shorts, and a t-shirt. It's not gonna impact the content of this discussion, but there's some value in it. And I think that's the same way we have to approach automation and operational levers as well. And then leading indicators like velocity, conversion quality, and confidence are great areas where operational improvements can lead to growth. So if we're doing things really well operationally, business growth is gonna come as a result of it. So next up, execution. Everyone does execution. And like I said at the beginning, execution is gonna be the foundation for really great work. If you're not doing execution well, you will never likely get a seat at the table. You have to be at a point where putting out fires is something that you're excellent at doing, or keeping them from even popping up. But from an execution standpoint, is an opportunity to become an entrusted internal advisor to your organization. If they know that you're a badass at your job, they're gonna trust you when it comes to strategic decisions that require a little bit more of that mindset. I think two good examples of this are internal postmortems, which I did at my second marketing ops role. And essentially, we took the whole campaign, we looked at all the points of that campaign, and candidly, email was just one small part of that campaign, but it was an important part, and they wanted to know how it went and how it performed. So those internal postmortems on requests and campaigns can bring to light areas of opportunity in a non-biased and neutral way. And what's great about these internal postmortems is that you can essentially say, you can point the finger at yourself and say, hey, this didn't go well, and here's why it didn't go well, and here's what we're gonna do better next time so that it goes better. Now, from a strategic standpoint, that visibility gives you access to the team, lets you talk about the work that you did, and also gives you an opportunity to share how we can improve it and why that improvement is necessary, positioning you strategically. When a project is owned by an execution arm, improvements to processes and methodologies can be made and benchmarked against. If you're making changes, which you should be, on every execution to improve it, benchmark it, keep an eye on it, and can keep that entire that archive or that log of that activity, if you will. If you can benchmark against your work, maybe the time that it took to build out something, maybe the results that came out of it, and you're comparing that against the changes and methods that you guys have made the improvements on, then you can use that to, again, position yourself strategically. So when we're thinking about a roadmap for influence, this is, again, like, maybe a little chat GPT'd, right? I'm trying to think of like a roadmap for influence here. How do we kind of analyze this? Well, first, you have to be tactical. You have to be execution heavy. Then you can translate what you're doing in a meaningful way to the people that don't do what you do. Has anyone ever tried to explain to their parents or siblings what you do in marketing ops? Beyond just sending an email, because sometimes you don't send an email. I walked my mom on a website and I said, look, you submit this form, it comes in here, it routes you to the salesperson, you get a score, and her eyes glazed over and she was so proud of me. But I had no idea what I was doing. So from a translational standpoint, does your team know that as well? Then you can start to be more strategic with your decisions. You can start to be more strategic with the advice that you're giving from an execution standpoint because the team understands what you're doing, and then that's where you can be influential to what's actually going to happen. Sorry for that slurp. All right. So, and again, just as a kind of foundation and a visible framework, great execution is brass tacks for everything. MOPs is the foundation behind marketing, sales, customer success. And I'll stand by that, and people can kind of come at me about it, but even company goals and market and board influence. This probably sticks in many people's mind, but I remember maybe 2 or 3 years ago in the marketing ops channel, there's the MOPs mistakes channel, and you got to see some of the cool ones. Do you guys recall when HBO sent out that templated email to their entire database? Tell me that marketing ops does not impact company goals, market and board influence when the entire world and LinkedIn is talking about this templated email that HBO Max sent out. More than their rebranding or their new shows that might have come out that same week, but the email flub. That's a very small way to consider it, but generally speaking, great execution is going to be the foundation. And the way that we visualize this internally for G&W Consulting is we have something called our revenue operations framework, which I want to get into. And when you think about how we kind of approach this, it's really with this engine of marketing operations at the middle. Now, I kind of want to go through each one of these, and I don't want to be too self-serving here, but this is a powerful tool. It's a free tool. It's something that each one of you can leverage in your own way. Don't even think about G&W, but think about the areas of impact. The first thing, from a marketing team standpoint, what does MOPS enable marketing teams to do? It enables MOPS team to scale data-driven team execution through campaign operations, through audience segmentation, through lead management and routing, through revenue analytics and MarTech stack optimization. These things, by the way, this is just a small little peek into it. If we were to double tap on each one of these bullet points, we can see the specific areas where that is impacted as well. I mean, marketing teams, amazing things that they do, incredible stuff around brand strategy. We get brought into some conversations sometimes with brand strategy agencies, and we're on the call and we're like, this is awesome. And they'll show this grand vision, an amazing vision. They're like, okay, now how do we make it happen? And if they don't have that piece, their campaign falls apart. How are they going to do the automation, the audience segmentation, the retargeting? Marketing ops enables that. Marketing ops also supports sales support as well by delivering insight that empower sales actions. And this is where we typically will see things like lead scoring, qualification, engagement activity. What are they actually doing? If you think about something like MSI or in HubSpot, you could see that life cycle nurturing, the intent signals that are associated with buying activities. When somebody does this, we know that they're more primed and more ready to do that. Marketing supports that. And historic campaign interactions. When you think about what did they do in the past? If I'm a salesperson getting ready to talk to a prospect who just landed on my desk, so to speak, what's the first thing that I'm going to do as a salesperson? Probably go into Salesforce, HubSpot, wherever we're at, look at the activity, look at what marketing campaigns they've been hit with, and essentially get an idea of, okay, this is what this person is interested in and where they're going to go. From a customer support standpoint, MOPS could help support retention, upsell, and cross-sell through onboarding programs, customer engagement, churn prevention, revenue expansion, and lifecycle marketing. Now again, buzzword heavy, but these are all real things, right? These are all things that are actually happening. Another thing I kind of want to point out is that when we have marketing operations at the center of everything, whether people know it or don't know it, when some of these areas start to fall, it's likely because we're getting bogged down with execution work or strategy has not had a chance to put its foot in the door. When you think about churn, by the way, there's no handoffs in the marketing ops world, right? There's no trade-offs. It doesn't go from marketing to sales. It might, on this chart, move from one team to the next in terms of life cycle, but marketing ops is still there. When it's time for renewal, when it's time for education, when it's time for upsell or cross-sell, marketing ops is powering that. And I think that's, again, an important thing to notice. Now, company goals and board and market influence, this is where as we were mapping this out, Raja spent a lot of time kind of diving into, well, how do we actually track that? I think the HBO example is one small kind of microcosm into it, but essentially MOPS help drives company growth by streamlining operation and giving actionable insights to drive revenue, increase efficiency, customer retention, shorten sales cycle, and maximize marketing ROI. Now again, these things are in tandem with the other teams. We're not saying that marketing ops is solely responsible for it, but it helps enable, support, and drive those things. And then board market influence. I don't know how many companies, people in this room have been a part of a rebranding or an acquisition, but marketing ops, again, typically at the center of that when it's happening. We want to merge databases. We want to diversify our marketing outreach strategy. We want company A to get these messages and company B to only get these messages. That's where you have that go-to-market shift, pipeline management, informed decision-making that will help the board make the decision that they need to make, and then also growth and target alignment with operational readiness. Oh, sorry about that. But high level, this is essentially what we're seeing. We're seeing that marketing operations sitting at the middle of this entire framework is supporting these teams, these overarching goals, and board and market influence. So again, when you think about, voice crack, when you think about where marketing ops can have that influence, what's the foundation always going to be? Operation, and of course, execution, because that's brass tacks for everything. Now, really quickly, again, not to be too self-serving, if you want the revenue operations framework, you scan the QR code. I will leave it up here for 10 seconds, counting backwards in my head. Feel free to scan it, free on our website. We're going to ask for an email, Good Marketing Ops poke, even though we have Clearbit and we already know that you hit our website, so there you go. But with that being said, I think we got it done. So thank you so much for listening. I am happy to answer any questions, open up a dialogue with the last 9 minutes or so, but would be more than happy to talk through different things. And Rachel.
Yes.
Oh, and I'm so sorry. I think he's going to just float over a microphone for the live stream. Appreciate that, Rachel.
Okay, so totally on board. All of this, love it. How do you make the time, how do you set aside the time on each project to say, this is the way we need to do things, this is the right way to do it? I get that, you know, we're setting it up as this is how we're going to be successful, but it just feels like as soon, not even when another project is done, but it's like you're 75% of the way through and suddenly the next project is coming on and overlapping that last 25%.
Yeah.
How do you have time or make time or force time to do all of it?
That's a great question, and I think, you know, when you think about MOPs in general, time management's a big part of that, right? Being able to navigate that. One thing that I would do internally is I would leverage, I gotta find the exact slide. Let me just pull this probably. If I can't find the slide, then I'll just speak to it. Is this on? Pretty much, I would take anyone who's on that team, I would book time on their calendar after the campaign is done. The 75% one could be a little bit challenging because you don't want to do it too preemptively, but I would elbow my way into people's calendars and set a time for 30 minutes of a postmortem, just to review what happened on the campaign execution side. I would also come with notes, and again, this all requires time, right? Like this is gonna require additional time, but I would also come with notes as to what happened, what went well, what didn't go well, and then what we're gonna do differently next time, and then keep track of that. I worked for as a contractor, a really great organization, Marketo Engage focused, and we had our own sort of MOPs folder and our postmortem folder, where every time that a campaign was completed, we would add in notes, how did it go? Did we hit our goals for campaign turnaround? Were there things missing from the Asana project when it was submitted initially that we had to go back and grab for? Did we have to change the creative, and if so, how many times? Those kinds of things were documented, and we could reference it and say, all right, this was a campaign that we could have done, I don't know, 30% better or saved 4 hours on, but our time was used up in these different areas. If you have something like, internally we use Rike for project tracking, so we'll tie all of our time to specific projects and hours. And we notice really quickly when something is way beyond the scope that we initially anticipated, and we can see where that time suck was. So, I mean, how do you do it with limited time? You elbow your way into more time from other people. I know it's not like a great answer, but once people kind of see the value of it, like I have kids, they will fight me tooth and nail on trying certain foods. Once they get a taste of it, they're like, okay, I want more of that. And I think internal teams, when they see like, oh, okay, if I can give you the final creatives when they're ready and they've been approved, we could remove 3 rounds of revision. I think they'll appreciate that and consider that for the next time. That's a small example, but I hope that was hopefully helpful to some degree. Great question, though. Thank you. Round of applause for that question. And if you want a round of applause, also ask one. Oh, there we go.
Less of a question, more of a statement, observation. I like that you said that you don't always have to tie your efforts to revenue or ROI. I've had projects where it was like, you know what, we don't have to send 20 emails in a nurture. They converted at the 3rd email. So stop wasting time writing and creative on those other 17 emails.
Absolutely.
So I like that, you know, maybe you can tie that to ROI by saying we're saving time and money and moving on to other projects. but it's not always going to, you're not always going to see it in the pipeline.
100%. Yeah, and I think to your point as well, there's this like conversation we'll always kind of go back to on, you know, Coca-Cola's commercial with the polar bear. Like, how do we tie that to revenue? Or when Apple released the 1984 commercial, how do they tie that to revenue? It's very challenging, and not everything can be tracked, but some things are just important to acknowledge. Some things are just important to have, right? And if it's 17 emails saved, awesome. You know? Thank you so much. Amy, applause, 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 applause.
I have a difficult question.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Did you say a difficult question?
yes.
Okay.
So
No, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm just
now
kidding.
that you're a VP, what's one thing in the context of this presentation you wish you knew when you were
Yeah.
like at a manager, senior manager level?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, and for context too, we're a small organization, so my title as VP is probably less important than most. And I had this like joke, I think last year, the VP of operations from Yahoo came. And I was like, oh, like we do the same thing, you know, we'll be able to relate. No, I would probably say, that we're all friends. I think senior leadership can be more fickle about certain things than I was expecting. And a lot of what my job is now is that I'm on calls with different partners like Adobe or HubSpot and Salesforce, walking them through the products and sales process. And you know, sometimes a spend or a budget of like $2,000 will make the difference. And you can show them all the features, all the benefits, but they're incredibly budget focused from that standpoint. Or they have a preference around something that's presented in a certain way. I probably would say that the journey to influencing leadership is a long, difficult journey that requires a lot of trust building and a lot of things that aren't tied to the performance of your job. That's kind of what I would say I've noticed the most.
Okay.
But yeah,
Thank you.
that was a great question. Thank you, Adam. Applause. All right, we got 2 minutes left. Anyone got a banger for this last 2 minutes? And that's fine if not too. All right, well, thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome. Go get a seat at leadership. MOPs on 3. 1, 2, 3. MOPs. All right, there we go.